Hey everyone, Cheryl here, popping in with your weekly video. And this week we're talking about this whole identity crisis that can happen when we heal our stuff. Because when we heal our stuff, everything changes. Our surroundings can change, the people we hang out with change, our thought patterns change, our beliefs about ourselves change, and everything just starts to look different. And we can have this moment of like, well, actually, who am I without that wound, without that pattern of behaviour, without that circle of friends? Because we've talked about how circle of friends changes as we go through this journey, right? And that's a natural part of the process. So we're going to cover that. You know, a lot of the times we have identity wrapped up in who we were. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't heal their shit, because they're so focused on who they are. And people fight so hard for this old version of themselves. Like on the one breath, they're saying, I want to be different, I want my life to be better. And on the other breath, they're saying, but you don't understand how hard it's been for me. And it's like we have to let go of all of that in order to move forward, because that contradiction is not going to get you anywhere, because it's like you're taking a step forward, then a step back. It's like you're just going back and forward. So you're moving, but you're not moving forward. You're just kind of moving, not in a circle, but you're moving like when you should be moving forward. So you go like up a level and down a level, and up a level and down a level. It's a little bit like you're kind of on I'm getting an image of a lift, also known as an elevator, depending on where you are in the world. And you're like you're at level 10, but then you go up to 11, then you go back to 10 and up to 11. And it's like up and down. Whereas you should be on like an escalator that continues going up. That's the image I'm getting. So I see this all the time, not with the people that work with me, not on any of you. But I see it with people who are like, but you don't understand how hard it's been for me. And it's like at a certain point, you've got to let go of that story. I'm not saying that it wasn't hard. I've been through so much shit. Like I don't share all of it because it's not really appropriate to share it. It doesn't help anyone. It certainly doesn't help me. But like we can fight for that, and we can go, but it was this and it was that, and you don't understand, and it was this thing, and you know, I grew up in a chaotic home, and I don't know, people's got stories. Could be my dad left, and then my mother was a narcissist, and then this happened to me, and then I was bullied, and then that happened. All these things, and it's like if you keep repeating that, you're just re-victimizing yourself. And I think we've talked about this before in a video a couple of weeks ago now, and it was called something like you can have your story or your healing, you can't have both. And it's really similar to what we're talking about today in terms of identity. The reason people hold on to that story is because they have a strong identity attached to it. That's why people do it, and they don't know who they are without that. And when we start to heal our stuff, we start to let go of that, we're like, well, actually, who am I? And we can start to feel like a fraud. So listening to a podcast recently by Ruby Fremont on imposter syndrome. So if you haven't heard that, go and listen to it. It's really, really good. It's not completely related to what we're talking to today, but it's sort of relevant. Because we start to feel like a fraud when we're stepping into environments that are really different for us. So we're going to we've got all these new friends who are perhaps ahead of us in business, and we're kind of freaking out because we're not as far as we want to be. Or we're hanging out with new friends and we just think they're really awesome, and we're like, oh my God, am I even good enough? Or we start seeing someone new, we start dating someone new, and it's everything we've ever wanted, but then we want to run away from it as well. I had a client recently who was working through that, and it was really, really interesting because I said to her, I was like, what do you want? It's kind of like The Notebook, that saying, what do you want? What do you want? I said, you're saying on the one hand you want stability and security, and it's something you value, but you also say you want freedom, so can they not coexist? And are you not actually running away from what it is you actually want? And she was like, oh shit, I am. I thought I wanted freedom to travel, but when I said, what is it you actually want? She described it, and I'm like, does it even matter if you call that stability or if you call it freedom? Like, does that feel good to you? She's like, yes, it does. And ultimately what she wanted was, a home with this man, and to be able to go to an event in the States, because she's in England, go to an event in the States for a week, and then he's cool with that, and then she can come back to her home. And that was like a combination of stability and freedom for her. So she was running away from what she wanted, and it was so interesting when she really got that. Like, it was huge for her. It was really, really big. And I share that story obviously anonymously, although she did actually share a video afterwards, after the session, and describe this exact thing. But the point is this: we can run away from the very thing that we want, and if we do that, we're not going to get what we want, right? And when we eventually heal our stuff and we get there and we have the home and we have the easy relationship and we have the new circle of friends, it can be a little bit like, well, who is this person? And it's the new version of you, it's the upgraded version of you. And that can feel very confusing and it can feel very scary. And I really want to challenge all of you to make sure that you're not buying into the old version of yourself and you're not feeding the lion. I'm getting an image of a wolf actually, and it reminds me of that phrase. Spirit, help me out with words, please. It's a native proverb, Native American proverb. I'm not sure if that's the politically correct term. I do apologise if it isn't. I lived in Canada for a long time, and I think the phrase was indigenous actually. So I apologise if that was offensive. It was an indigenous ancient story, and it's the story of there's two wolves inside of me, and one is focused on destruction, and he's focused on doubt and fear, and the other one's focused on truth and love and compassion and kindness, and they're fighting each other. And this elder is talking to this little boy, and the little boy says, well, which wolf wins? And he says, the one I feed. How profound is that? I got shivers as I said that. The one I feed. And that's exactly what it is. Like, which wolf are you feeding? Are you feeding the wolf that's like the old wounded you? Or are you feeding the wolf that is the new, the higher version of you, who you really are? I think I mentioned this last week as well, but like my old tagline used to be reconnecting women to the truth of who they are, or reconnecting you to the truth of who you are. And like, you are not your wounds. Like, that's not who you are. It's something you chose to learn. It's something you chose to experience so that you could learn a karmic lesson and become the version of you. And it's kind of ironic that you think that in the process of learning that lessons that you are the old version, but that's not who you are. It's not. I remember having a coach years ago who said, there's like version A of you and version B. And what if version B, like the version that doubts herself, what if that's not who you are? What if version A is who you really are? And actually you've been inauthentic the whole time because that's not who you are. That was really, really profound. So yeah, who are you feeding? And also, this is pretty relevant. So recently I've been looking into the nodes in birth charts. I'm not an astrologer, but to understand my birth chart a little better. And I have a south node in Scorpio and a north node in Taurus. And I'll explain what that means and how that's relevant to our topic today, because this is not just like story time with Cheryl, although sometimes it is, but I think that these examples make it really real. So in birth charts, from as far as I can understand, your south node is like past lives and karma, and your north node is like who you're becoming, like your true node. I actually have a friend who has a bespoke perfume company called True Node, and she makes soul scents, essences of essential oils that are the vibration of someone's soul, and she called it True Node, and I love that so much. She made a bespoke perfume when we were in Greece last year. It was beautiful. In fact, I've got it right here. I'll show you. I don't know why I want to show you. I just do. It just feels like this is something you guys need to see. And it's so funny because it's literally right by my desk. So this is what she does. This is True Node. She doesn't know I'm doing this, but she's just such a beautiful soul. So she's on all the socials, so check her out if that calls to you. It's just something that I was reminded of. So anyway, the True Node is where you're going. Your North Node or True Node, it's the same thing. It's where you are going. And I'm going to take this like grandma cardi off, even though it's super comfy. It feels like it's restricting me a little bit, and that's why my flow isn't quite right. It's like stripping with Cheryl, me seductively removing a stocking or something. That's probably Infinite Love After Dark. In fact, we should have an Infinite Love After Dark. That would be well good. So the point is this. South Node in Scorpio being the past, the shadow self. South Node in Scorpio is destruction. It's chaos. It's emotional turmoil. And North Node in Taurus is the builder, the spiritual gardener, I heard it described as. The one that puts down roots, the one that has stability, and the one who invests and is really stable financially and builds a lot of esteem around building things. not necessarily just surface level accomplishments, but actually building and creating and building something that contributes. And that's what it's about. And you might not have a North Node in Taurus, you might not have a South Node in Scorpio, it doesn't matter. But with that example, maybe I'm just saying this because this is my path, but I feel like to a certain extent, many of us have this path, which is going from that shadow self and to the real part of who we are. So going from the destruction and the chaos through to the building and the stability and the higher expression of who we really are. So some journaling prompts for you. When you are feeling your best, who are you? When you are feeling your best, how would you describe yourself? When you are feeling your best, how would others describe you? And I want you to journal on that and then find out what those words are for you, because that's your true self. That's the true essence of who you are. So for me, it's things like bold, honest, direct, right? That's accurate. And it doesn't matter so much who the shadow self is. You probably know that side really, really well, right? But the reason why that exercise is so important, because you can see that and you go, oh, that's actually who I am. And anytime I'm acting out of shadows and wounding, I'm actually not being who I am. And like I said before, sometimes we can feel like that's opposite. We can feel like that new version of myself that I've stepped into isn't who I am, when it is. That's the fullest, truest expression of you. That's your true node. That's your true node, right? Today's episode is sponsored by True Node Soul Sense. It's not, but it should be. This is... Oh, I feel like I should get these designed for all of you. We should have an infinite love soul scent. I wonder what the pricing would be on that. I think that would be like fucking incredible. There's an idea. Thank you, Spirit. That was amazing. So that's the truth of who we are, is what we're heading towards. And, you know, maybe you've read your birth chart, maybe you haven't, and I'm not an astrologer and I don't expect you to go out and like find that information and know what that is. But that journaling exercise will help you, because it's helping you to see what is the highest expression of yourself, and you will have experienced it at some point, right? You'll have, it's that feeling when you're in those high vibrations of joy and happiness and gratitude and just feeling so excited and lit up about life. So you can add that to the journaling question too. Like I think I said something like, when you're feeling your best, but you could start that sentence with, when I've felt joyful, or when I've felt excited, or when I've been in the best time of my life. Like, it doesn't really matter how you start the sentence, but it's like, when you've experienced that, who are you? Because that's the highest expression of your soul and the truth of who you are. Because everything else you went through was just preparing you to get to that. It's like, it's almost like you're the place where you start and then the destination. I'm planning a road trip, so I kind of have that in my mind. It's like a journey. It's like you set off at home and you put your sat nav on, your GPS, and you plug in your points, and it's maybe a 5-hour drive, and maybe you stop at a gas station or two along the way, and they're your stop off points, but it's where you're going to. It's not where you started. And like, when you get to a new destination, you're not going to say to yourself, oh, I'm still in the Lake District. Well, you're not in the Lake District anymore, you're in Bristol. That's where you are, and you're still thinking about the Lake District, but you're not even there anymore. Does that make sense? Like, that's kind of what it's like. It's like you're going to a new destination, and then you're at the new destination and you're thinking about the old destination. Like, what the fuck? Why do we do that? It's crazy, right? So it's kind of about stepping into her. It's about stepping into her, and this is kind of like a woo-woo, non-tangible thing. It's energetic, but it's like really liking that new person. I've got actually a visualization in Break the Cycle. So if you guys have been in Break the Cycle, you'll know what that visualization is. But I basically take you through a visualization of your higher self. Maybe I'll create one for the monthly meditations that are coming up. But when you see who you are in the future, you see like the highest expression of yourself, the best version of you, and you kind of step into her and see through her eyes, which is like a total NLP thing. You can do that in like any old Paul McKenna hypnosis. I love his work. I think it's a genius. But when you step into that and like see what she sees and feel what she feels, and like you just become her for that brief moment, that's what you're doing. You're embracing that version of yourself, and you're stepping into that, and you're like, how would she sit? And how would she speak? And what would her tone be like? And what would her pitch be like? And it's not about becoming someone else. It's about collapsing time so that that future version of you from in 10 years time happens in 2 years, not 10 years. I know for me, like, I don't want this to sound arrogant at all, it's really not meant to be. But when I look at things I was doing a year ago, like if it pops up on Facebook in a memory and I see a picture of me, I'm like, I don't even recognise that person. I literally don't recognise her, and I love her and I have so much compassion for her, but I don't recognise her because I grow so quickly. It's the same with things from like 6 months ago, 3 months ago. It's so fast, and it's because of a lot of things. It's because I look at the stuff that's difficult, and that's the Scorpio going into the shadows. I don't expect you to go swimming in the shadows to the depths that I'm able to. I'm like one of those, those free divers that can dive to like 200 meters deep and hold their breath. That's me, but with emotions. In fact, that's a great analogy. I should share that. But that's one of the reasons. But it's also because this collapsing time thing, it's jumping into the next version of you and becoming her now so that you can be her now instead of being her in 10 years. Because when we see that and we go, oh, that's who I'm going to be in 10 years, like we're almost kind of chasing something we'll never really get to. Because it's kind of like you're here and you see her here and you're like, oh, this is where I'm going to be then. And then a year goes by and 2 years and then 10 years. Like you might still be over here. You might have moved in time, but you're still this distance between who you are now and who you want to be. Whereas it's about like merging them. So it doesn't matter if it's in a year or 2 years or 10 years, you're actually her now. And that's going to change and that's going to evolve as you get to know yourself. But it's about constantly asking that question, like, what would the best version of me do right now? What would the best version of me think right now? What habits would she choose? Would she be drinking garbage drinks and skipping workouts? Or would she be doing something else? And here's a bit of a hack for you, a bit of a tip. Changing your action changes everything. So let's say today as an example. On Fridays I like to get my nails done, which is why I'm talking with my hands more than normal, because I'm like, how good do they look, by the way? Can you see like hang on, this is opposite. The ring finger. The ring fingers have got, I'm not swearing at you, I promise, got stars in them. How good does that look? I don't know why you need to see my nails, but I love bright colours. So like I've got like the orange and the pink, and I'm just like in my happy place. This is my jam. And this is the highest version of myself. It's like the bold, colourful me. Like that's, not to say I don't wear grey sometimes. I like, my grey dress that I wear like all the time. But colour is really who I am. I like colour. Like obnoxious, bright colours, my thing. So what was I saying before I showed my nails to you? I was talking about, I got it. So today I got my nails in the morning and then I went to go get groceries, and this afternoon I was like, I'm fucking tired. It's Friday as I record this, by the way. I know these are out on Mondays, but I'm recording this on the Friday before. I was like, I'm really tired, and honestly I could have taken a nap. And I'm not saying naps are bad. Naps are like I'm not saying that naps will prevent you from being your higher self. Your higher self might take lots of naps, but probably not. Not on a work day. And so I was like, if I take a nap, how am I going to feel when I wake up? I'm going to feel shitty. I'll feel groggy and I'll feel like shitty that I didn't get things done. So what would the higher version of myself do? She would do something productive. And not only would she do something productive, but she'd do something like double productive. So she would not only prep the food that she's just bought, prepping meaning like chopping up the veggies, putting them in containers. Can you tell I have a Virgo moon at 28 degrees? Putting them in containers, planning the meals for the week. Maybe cooking some of that, prepping some salads, whatever it is, and just having that ready to go so that next week, when she's busy and she gets home from the gym, she doesn't have to, I'm referring to myself in second person, but she doesn't have to scramble and spend time or think this is too difficult, I'm going to have to grab something to take out because I don't have time. It's like it's all prepped and ready to go. It just makes it easier for myself. And then while I was meal prepping, I was also listening to some modules from a course that I've been doing, then I switched to another course. And I got like 2 modules of the first course done and almost a full module of the second course. And I was also like calling my dad. It's his birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Dad. He's not going to see this when I said that. But I was calling my dad and planning things. And it's like, even though I was tired, it's like I wasn't really pushing myself. I was just chopping vegetables. It's not hard. But that is so much more productive than me just going, oh yeah, I'll just have a nap. I could have had a nap. The world wouldn't have ended, but the higher version of myself would have done something productive. And then tomorrow, it's the weekend. I'm going to another gong bath tomorrow, which I'm really excited about. And that's why I'm sharing this today, because I've got my dad's birthday and the gong thing. So I thought I'd better do this now. But do you see what I mean? Like, even though I'm kind of tired, and there's going to be times like when future Cheryl is tired and she's just going to have to just tap into that inner strength and remind herself of why she's doing it and get on the horse and just fucking gallop. You know what I mean? Where do these analogies come from? No idea. But that's the thing. And it's not about pushing yourself to exhaustion, but it is about pushing yourself into the new version of you. That's really good. It's not about pushing yourself to exhaustion. It's about pushing yourself into the new version of you. Because it's so easy to just be like, oh, fuck it, I'm tired. Do you think Beyonce gets tired? What do you think Beyonce does when she's tired? Pushes through. And I don't mean to like... Here's the thing. Like, you also want to be gentle with your inner child. So if your inner child is like, I'm exhausted, I need to rest, listen to that for sure. But like, there's a fine line between needing to rest and just feeling a bit like apathetic and not really wanting to get things done and wanting to like float around and waste time and escape. You know what I mean? Like, I often wish that I had more fire in my chart. Actually, I think me with more fire might be a little too intense for me, let alone other people. And my fire kind of comes from Scorpio, even though Scorpio is a water sign. I don't talk so much about astrology today, it's just on the brain, I don't know. Even though Scorpio is a water sign, I find it a very passionate sign, a very passionate energy. And astrology isn't the only thing in the world. I also have a very expressive personality type. I also have a Mercury in Aries, which is super direct. I also have, I'm INFJ, and they're super intense when they talk about things they're passionate about. So although I'd like more fire and that helps with the motivation, actually, like, none of it is an excuse. You know what I mean? And I think I'm talking about this really from the perspective of someone who's leading some kind of purpose-driven movement, whether it's a business or whatever it is that you do. But it really applies to any area of life. Like, I know you're all professional women to a certain degree, right? You all have careers. And yeah, you're probably on point with most of this anyway, but it is just about being able to be that higher version of yourself, because that's how you collapse time and that's how you get there faster. And the identity thing, it's realizing that the identity, your true identity, is your true node. It's your true essence. And even if you don't have your birth chart in front of you and you don't know what that means, that's okay. Like, just go through those journaling questions, which are below as well. Go through them and then say, oh yeah, that is the best version of myself, the highest version of myself. She's smart and she's courageous and she's resilient, or she's bold and she's direct and she's honest, or whatever it is, right? Or she's compassionate and kind and the most loving person ever, or she's confident and she's outgoing and she's gregarious. There's a good word. So she's all those things, you know, and that's who you really are. That's your identity. And that's what I want you to know when you're having a bit of a freak out and identity crisis, is knowing that you are that newest version of yourself. Even if it's the first time you're stepping into her, that's who you really are. And it can be a little scary, right? It can be a little scary because we haven't spent much time being her, and it can be intimidating. Hold that thought. Come on. Had to let the cat in. I apologise, that's really unprofessional. So yeah, it's about realising that that's who you really are, and sometimes you can be like, shit, I'm amazing. And that can be scary. We can be scared of our own power. And it's like that Marianne Williamson quote, isn't it? I'm quoting all the people today. But it's that Marianne Williamson quote of, oh, fuck. You know, the really famous one that I can't remember? Yeah, that one. This is why I don't record on Fridays, because I'm brain dead, but that's okay. Our greatest fear is not that we are powerless. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's good shit, right? That is good shit, because we're afraid of that. And that's why we try to avoid her and say it's not who you really are, when it is who you really are. And when you realise that that's who you really are, that's when you come up against a lot of fear and resistance, and you want to sabotage and engage in habits that don't serve that future you. And that's how we start to slide backwards. I mean, you never really go backwards, but I heard the theory once. It was by a CFO who I used to work with, who was such a beautiful soul. He was an incredible human being, by the name of Albert. Really beautiful soul in Canada. And he said, you're either... It's so funny because he was so loving and so compassionate, but then when he said things, he was super direct. I think he must have had a Mercury in Aries too. Probably most execs do. He said, it's not possible to stay in the same place. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards, because if you stay in the same place, you're going to get run over. And the cat wants to go out again. Don't yawn at me. Get yourself out, Chimp. Aren't you glad you have these videos where they're like super all over the place and like Mowgli's running around? And this is real life though. Like, I went to the supermarket today, I chopped food all afternoon and I cut my thumb. Can you see that? Yeah. Like, this is kind of, my higher self is so honest about who she is. It's like, I have my nails done, that look great. I also cut my thumb. It's just happened. It's life. It's honesty, right? I think that's everything I had to say. I think that's everything. I'm just going to tune in and see if there's anything else. I'm being reminded of a phrase that came to me the other day, which I forgot to share actually, and I must do. And it was, what if you never made any mistakes? What if all the perceived mistakes were just karmic lessons that you were meant to learn? So I really want to relay that to you. I got nudged really to relay that. Because sometimes that can keep us, I see why they gave that to me now, that can keep us away from our higher self, because we're beating ourselves up about a mistake that we made. And when we realise that it wasn't really a mistake, it was something we had to do so that we learned a lesson, we let ourselves off the hook, and we're very forgiving of ourselves, and that helps us to move forward and really step into that future version of us. And we're like, oh, I made this mistake. Oh, I made this mistake. And we're almost like, it's like magnets repelling. It repels you from your future self. Whereas if you forgive yourself and you're like, yeah, I could have done better in that particular situation, and I learned from that, and that wasn't a good call, but that's okay. Next time I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I also know that it was a karmic lesson, and I've learned that lesson. That's okay now, and I forgive myself. Then you can just kind of like melt into that future version of you, and it kind of melts together like chocolate. That's what happens. So yeah, if you're thinking, oh, I shouldn't have taken that job because I ended up leaving 6 months after and it looks really bad on my resume, or my CV, as we say in England. Or, you know, I moved to that town and then I didn't stay there like I thought I would. Or whatever it is. Or I took on that client and it kind of went south. Like, what if it was just something you had to learn, and now you've learned from it, you can move forward, right? Okay, I think that's everything. I hope that served you massively, and I will see you all next week.